Hello and welcome to another live. Very good to be back. Thank you for joining me. And this week, I just want to preface and say, because we had somebody who's very confused about me talking and then not reading the questions until a bit later. So at the start of these, I talk a little bit about a topic and then I go back and I look at the questions and then I go through and answer them as best I can. As I finish what I'm saying. The reason I do that is so that there's some sort of continuity between, otherwise I would end up going backwards and forwards through lots of different questions, and it makes more sense to do it that way. I used to do it the other way and it made no sense, but I welcome everyone who's coming. Thank you very much for joining me. And today I wanted to talk about the idea of multilingualism. Because in 3 weeks' time, or just under 3 weeks' time, on the 27th of March, we're going to be celebrating the Day of Multilingualism, which is a day that was set up by Thomas Bach, who is a friend of mine, and he set it up and he was involved in, well, he got me involved in working on it with him last year, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And we are going to be having it in the Polyglot Conference live environment. Now, the Polyglot Conference live environment is from the conference last year. We keep it open all year so that we can have other events. So we celebrated International Mother Language Day, sorry, and we're going to be doing the International Day of Multilingualism, and we will also do other events in that environment. And all through the year, we have events going on, like language exchange sessions going on for various languages all through the year. So if you want to sign up, all you need to do is go to polyglotconference.com and click the register button, and you'll be taken to an Eventbrite page and you can join in. Alternatively, specifically for the Multilingualism Day event, there is also a link directly to the Eventbrite page, also in the video on YouTube, and I'll also copy that into Instagram too. So you're very, very welcome to join us for the event itself. The reason for the event and the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about it today is because what Thomas noticed was that we had a number of events about languages and about certain types of languages and different things, but we didn't actually have an event to celebrate people and people who are multilingual, people who enjoy multilingualism or want to be multilingual or whatever, about multilingualism generally. And actually, over half of the planet is multilingual. There are many more people who speak more than one language than there are monolinguals. In certain countries around the world, it can feel like most of the world is monolingual. I grew up in a country where many people were monolingual and not multilingual, but that isn't the norm. There are many more people around the world who do speak more than one language, and it is the more normal thing to do. So the hashtag multilingualism is normal is one of the hashtags that we use, and also Multilingual Day. And it's because of this perception, and I think obviously because some countries in the West particularly, that there is that perception, that skewed perception of monolingualism being the norm, simply because they tend to be the loudest on the internet. So we hear a lot more of those voices. So it's quite interesting to know that actually that perception isn't quite right, and to try and rebalance that so that it makes more sense and is more faithful to the true picture of the world. So why is it important to do this? Well, it's important for a few reasons. For me personally, it's important to celebrate multilingualism because coming from a country where we have a very dominant language, which is English, it would be the same for any English-speaking country. English tends to be a very dominant language. It dominates. It's heavily used in TV, media, songs. It's a very popular language. A lot of people who don't speak English growing up want to speak English. It's probably the most commonly studied language as a second language in many, many parts of the world. And it's a language that people use as an auxiliary language to travel and to when we go to a different place. It's probably the most common language to try to speak to somebody else for understanding. Now, that said, there are other countries in the world where the main language spoken, the majority language spoken, is a dominant language. Other countries like that would be places like Germany, places like Spain, places like France, places like Italy. They tend to be quite dominant languages within the country. And what I mean by that is that other variations of the language, other languages, dialects, whatever you want to call the variations, or whatever people choose to call the variations within their language group or within the country, those languages do tend to get neglected in favor of the dominant language. And we've certainly seen that in other languages as well, in other groups. So unfortunately, a language like Ukrainian has suffered this. And so what we've been doing is doing some Ukrainian lessons for people to learn more about Ukrainian, and also for people to celebrate this language at a time where we feel the international community, particularly in the language community, we feel that people need to see our support. And so we encourage everyone to really get involved in looking at other languages that maybe you wouldn't look at normally. So when it comes to these other languages that we talk about, to recognize that actually there is a degree of multilingualism in a number of countries that we wouldn't expect. So a country like Scotland, for example, where many people don't think of Scots as a language that they were bilingual in with English, with Scottish English, and often will be neglected by certain areas of society, but also maybe put down as an inferior language or an inferior way of communicating. And in fact, it's not. And we need to make sure that we acknowledge the diversity, the linguistic diversity of different communities and countries and cultures, so that we can celebrate people and lift people up. By lifting up one group and one language and one culture and one dialect, even if the community understands their way of speaking to be a dialect of another language, we don't diminish the relevance and the importance and the respect that we have for the other language. We can lift everyone up. And this is kind of where I come from for most of these types of things. I don't see the idea of lifting up one language as being putting down another. That's not what it's about. It's lifting everyone up and making sure everyone feels valued and feels relevant, and that their language and their way of speaking is not just appreciated, but also beautiful and valid and relevant. And there's no reason why we can't have that beautiful diversity and enjoy the different ways of using either dialects or other languages within different territories. So I am fortunate to live in a part of the world where there are a number of languages and quite diverse languages, in the Balkans, where we have lots of languages. And I'm actually very, very proud of the city I'm in at the moment, Skopje, because we have actually, I believe, the only place in the world where the Romani language has any official status. And that is a part of Skopje called Shutka. And the Romani language enjoys an official status there, because if you have a certain percentage of the population in an area where the language is spoken, then we have that recognition, and therefore people can do many normal things that we would expect to do in any language, like going to pay your electricity bills. It may seem very mundane, it may seem quite banal to some people, but actually that is a right that often many people enjoy, but don't realize that they have that right to enjoy. Being myself of Welsh origin as well, I know that in Wales we fought to be able to even write checks and go to the bank and do our business in Welsh in our own country in the 70s, and that was those rights started to be given to Welsh people. And this is not an automatic thing that everybody in every linguistic community gets, even in their own regions, in their own countries, and even when that is the majority language of a community. Sometimes that's not afforded, and this is why multilingualism and the Day of Multilingualism, to support it and to appreciate all languages, I think is really important. I also am a firm believer in learning community languages, learning the languages of people around us for better understanding, and also because they're languages we're likely to hear. And all of these languages are languages that if we hear them, we're likely to be able to practice them without making much effort, and therefore they will stay with us. Now, that's not to say that I've not lost my mind. I'm not to the point where I don't understand the relevance or the need of learning languages that will travel more easily, because more people in different countries learn them. So of course, even though English is for me a first language, and I grew up speaking English, I'm not against English, and I think that English is and serves, it is an important language and does serve a purpose, and so I definitely do not diminish that language either. At the same time, I think that that language can be a good language, and also other languages can also be learned at the same time. If you are, some people have said to me in the past, and I understand this, that there's only so much time and availability. Well, the European Union has this idea of promoting and wanting everyone to speak at least 2 other languages in addition to their first language, or languages that they speak at home. So they have 2 languages that they study. Now, that can be one of an auxiliary language that people may use in a number of countries, but then we could choose another language that's a neighboring language, for example. There's no reason why we can't do that. There are advantages to doing this in terms of business as well. So there's a business application. So in countries like India, this is an issue for many communities in India, and I understood this from speaking at an event from Pune in India, where it was explained to me that people were not necessarily learning and focusing their attention on community languages as much. The problem is that when they're trying to work with other countries and other people who are trying to do business or invest, if you neglect the local language that the people who are maybe providing the service use, you then neglect that conduit between the two. So it can actually be a financial and business advantage to learn local community languages, because you get to the heart of different things. Now, this is one reason why, for example, where people say financially or business-wise it's not worth it. It can be. It can also have an impact on the type of work you do and what you do. So to sort of move away just from the idea of the language itself being relevant and showing respect and appreciation for the diversity, it can also bring other benefits if that's what motivates you. And there's nothing wrong with having different motivations for learning languages or doing different things. I mean, I have nothing against anyone learning languages for whatever reason they want. I think it's just nice that we learn another language, and I support everyone in doing that. I think that for me personally, some of these languages that I've studied in before actually help me to understand links in history, links between cultures, the bridges between different peoples and cultures, and see how they've interconnected and how they've merged and mingled over many, many years. So just the other day I was on TikTok, and there was somebody who shares content about the Assyrian language, and they said that the word for hair is kosa, and kosa is also the Macedonian word for hair. And I was intrigued because I wondered how you would get a word like kosa in both languages, because the languages are otherwise not related. Assyrian is a Semitic language, and so my brain started working, thinking, well, I know it's not the same in other languages. So is it come through Arabic? Has it come through somewhere else? And it turns out that actually doing some digging, it came from Sanskrit, and it probably may have come through another language into the 2 languages. But I find that particularly interesting when you start seeing these links across the world between different very different countries and cultures and languages. And I get this kind of thing on a regular basis. In fact, studying Swahili, I see words that we have in Macedonian that also appear in languages like Turkish or Arabic, where they've probably come from, and then also maybe in Persian or in Indonesian, or these words seem to travel across the globe. And I absolutely love that idea of you can follow and trace and track languages and how they've moved, and that diversity for me is just absolutely the reason why I like to look at new languages and different languages and continue to study more and more of them, because the more I study, the more I find these links, and it just shows me how much we have in common as people, and how actually there's a lot more things that we can, like, points in common that we have, and I really, really love that. So I kind of live for that that kind of thing, really. So these are the reasons why I think it's important to celebrate multilingualism, and I absolutely invite you to join us in that celebration. If you want to talk and you've never spoken before, you're very, very welcome to speak. You'll find it's a very safe environment. You're welcome to fill out the form, sign up to speak, sign up just to attend, whatever you want to do. You're very, very welcome, and we'd love to see you. So please, please do get involved and bring your diversity to the mix. There are many, many languages that we can hear about, many cultures and many communities that we'd love to hear about. I just remember when I was traveling around Southern Africa, and I would meet people who spoke 5 or 6 languages and then had an idea or an understanding of others as well. And I just absolutely love that these are just like things that they do. And of course, I speak their language. It's similar to this one that I speak. And yes, they just live across the river. And this is on the Zambezi, right? So this is on the Zambezi River. And I was at the time, having a conversation with somebody in Zimbabwe. And he was working at the place I was staying at. And we just sat down and had a drink together, and we were talking about life and the languages he spoke and used around, and it was just wonderful to sort of hear. And he's saying, yeah, and these tourists came from this other country, and I think they came from Kenya or somewhere, and they spoke Swahili, but he said he could recognize some of the Swahili because he spoke some other Bantu languages, and I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I love that we have this kind of diversity, and I want to hear more of these stories. I love hearing more of these stories. It was one of those occasions actually where I wished I could get the camera out and make a video to sort of record the story and share it with more people. It wasn't really the thing I could do at that time. My camera wasn't with me, and so technologically I couldn't do that. But also, I don't know, sometimes you enjoy the conversation for what it is at the time, right? So I guess also it might have taken away from that as well. But I really wish I could have shared that conversation with you and let you hear it, because I absolutely loved listening to him and learning from him and understanding sort of his reality of multilingualism. And yeah, and if you have any thoughts to share on the topic, I'd love to hear them as well. So that's kind of why I want to talk about it. And people talk about we talk about multilingualism and polyglottism, right? So I mean, multilingualism and polyglottism really in essence is the same thing. It's just that it's the Greek root versus the Latin root. I do, in my own head, and I guess this is just with English, when I speak English, I do think of polyglot and multilingual in different ways personally. And the reason why that is because polyglot is not as used in normal talk, normal speech in English. Multilingual is more commonly understood and known, whereas polyglot isn't. And so for me, this idea of being a polyglot has taken on this meaning of learning languages that you don't necessarily need in your own direct communities or for your life, but you do it because just for a sheer love of language. So you learn a language that's not related to where you are or your situation or where you're living, but you learn a language just because you want to learn the language. Whereas multilingual has this feeling for me of like the people of Luxembourg would be multilingual. They speak all of these languages. You know, they'll speak Luxembourgish, French, German, and then usually they'll speak English as well, and then maybe other languages. They have the largest Portuguese community outside of Portugal in Europe, and so they speak. Many people speak Portuguese. There are also a large, I believe, Serbian community, so many people will speak Serbian at home. So they have like maybe 4 or 5 languages per person. And does this make them polyglots? Well, they may not be interested in languages. So this is where I say, okay, that's more of a multilingual. You happen to be born in a situation where you speak lots of languages. And I guess that's the difference in my mind. But that's only in my mind. It's a subjective point of view. I don't know how many of you would agree with that or understand and identify with that feeling. I'm guessing that if you are a French speaker, you may not see it in those terms because the word polyglot is more commonly known and understood in French than it is in English. But if you're another English speaker, it would be interesting to know. Or if you speak another language, have you perceived this kind of difference as well? Let me know in the comments. I'd be interested in knowing what you think. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about from my side. And now I'm going to have a look at the questions and see. So if I don't get to your question straight away, yeah, I hopefully will soon. I am going to start on YouTube today. So let me see. Ahoy. Ahoy, hola. Yeah, nice to see you, Irene. Nice to see you. Thank you. Ahoy. Good to see you. Tienes una linda barba. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Ukraina, Russia. Yeah, I think we're all following this and hoping that hoping for something positive in the end. A lot of negatives happen, so I mean, it feels a bit naive of me to say that even actually. I just wish for the best for the people of Ukraine. I love following the roots of words and seeing how they are interconnected. Tiffany, I'm glad you said that. That makes me very happy to read you saying that. Absolutely love that. And yeah, it's great hearing about them. I love your stories on them. Svetlana, a lot of young people from several countries mix a lot of English words in their native language, and it's their way to keep their English on top. Yeah, Svetlana, I have mixed if I'm honest, I have mixed feelings about the mixing of some languages. Like, I get it, it sounds cool, right? I sometimes do feel that it can be to the detriment of the language, of the other language. I see that in a number of languages where I think that people find it difficult then to really, how can I say, find the original word in the language. So it almost makes the language sound poorer, I guess, is for want of a better word. That and the perception sometimes can be of other speakers of other languages. Oh, you don't have a word for that in your language, so you use the English word. That's not often the case. Often the case is, actually, no. I mean, sometimes English does add, like, in a different way. So speaking for my home language, for example, some internet terminology in Macedonian can be used in English. And it just is related to the internet type thing. That it's like, for example, we say sheruba. Sheruba is the share on social media, but you would never use that, for example, sharing like a piece of cake. You wouldn't say that. You would only use it for like sharing on. We also have to like as well. We also use like for on social media, but yeah, you do. And sometimes I think it's fine, and sometimes I'm like, because I hear some people use it in the Balkans, and I think there's a perfectly good word that you could have chosen. And I have heard children not know certain words of their own language, but they know the English word, which is really, it's quite surprising for me. Yeah. And I've actually had children ask me the local word, like they've been speaking to me in the local language, and then they will ask me what the word is in their language, and then they say the word in English, and I'm like, wow. And yeah, that really takes my breath away, to be honest. But I remember in the Netherlands, when I lived in the Netherlands, there were some kids playing outside where I lived, and they were playing in English, and I was listening to them. I was like, "What's going on?" These two Dutch kids were speaking in, and then they said something in Dutch, and then they went back to playing in English. And I looked at them and I said, "You know, why are you speaking English?" And they said, "Power Rangers don't speak Dutch." And I thought it was it was a fantastically wonderful, innocent, and very clever explanation, because the Power Rangers were not dubbed into Dutch at the time in the Netherlands. They did speak English, so it made complete sense that they would play Power Rangers in English. I thought it was very, very sweet. So yeah, there are some times where I think it's quite cool. I'm just trying to see. So today's topic is multilingualism, but I think you may have got that by now. Let me see. Ni hao, hello, hola. I'm seeing all the hellos. Nice to see you all. Thank you for writing. Let me see. I would like to ask you a question, if you don't mind. No, of course I don't mind. I speak 4 fluently. I understand 6 languages, and I live out of my home country. Okay. I'm dealing on a daily basis with accent discrimination. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, what's your question? Feel free to ask. I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. What would you suggest to face this reality better? Thank you. Accent discrimination. Wow. I know it's a problem in certain countries, for sure. Some countries more than others. And I mean, look, I can philosophize and say that it shouldn't happen and all this kind of stuff, but it's possibly not useful to you. Depends where you want to go with it. So you've got to ask yourself a question, okay? Really important. Ask yourself the question. Do you want to try and get your accent to sound more like the people around you who speak the language? Or do you want to just carry on as you are? And I think that's really the question. If you carry on the way you are, your experiences may not change. I would hope they would, because I think it's ignorant of people to react badly just because of an accent, or to sort of treat you differently or even rudely because of an accent. But let's be honest, that might not be where you want to go. If you want to work on your accent, then I don't think people should have to work on their accent to that degree. I think accent is only important to the degree that you're understandable. Personally, so pronunciation for me is the key thing. Can people understand you? And if the answer to that is yes, then an accent is a badge of where you're from. It's a badge of your identity. It's part of who you are, and I don't think anyone should have to change that necessarily. That said, I recognize that if a situation is untenable, unpleasant, then you may want to choose to work on your accent to make it feel more in line with how people are speaking around you. And then for that, if you do choose that, and that is your choice, then there are accent reduction and accent sort of activities that you can, exercises that you can do to help to reduce your accent and to try and get to an accent that's closer to the people who are around you. And then you might see the social issues that you're experiencing diminish. I personally, yeah, I don't want to tell you, but I don't want to pretend that, you know, oh, that shouldn't happen. I would rather be acknowledge the fact that you've written and said that, and give you some more concrete advice. So that's kind of what I would say. So if that's what you want to do, then there's maybe Luca Lampariello talks a lot about this, about accent and stuff. So in the first instance, you might want to have a look at some of his videos. He's very good at focusing quite heavily on this kind of stuff, so you may want to do that, and then come back and let me know what you decide. I can recommend things like recording, getting feedback from another speaker, particularly focusing on tongue position, where the air is coming out of your mouth, where the vibrations are, trying to focus in on the sounds, hearing the sounds. And remember, you have to be able to hear the sound to reproduce it. So you need to be able to train your ear to get it, or at least, I mean, there are people actually who can't hear, who can reproduce sounds pretty well, but they will do that as well a lot with vibrations, a lot with tongue position, and knowing what's going on in the mouth. So you can do that, and the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, can also help to do that if you really want to get into it. Okay. Let me see. Hello from India. Hello. Good to see you. Love your videos. Thank you very much. Happy Sunday. Rich, happy Sunday to you too. I've come from Carolina slang for some Carolina slang for me. That boy is faster than a water bug, referring to a speedy tennis player. I love it. That's so cute. Okay. Yeah. Nice to see you all. Thank you for the kind hearts and the support, and for the likes and for the follows and for all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Thank you. 90% learning words. Oops, lazy. And if you, yes, now learn new words actively. Is language learning 90% learning new words? It becomes a very big part of it, learning words. I don't know if it's just words, but also expressions and turns of phrase, that kind of thing as well. So sort of how you use the words in different situations and how they can be used in expressions, for example, or you know, sayings and slang and that kind of stuff. So yeah, vocabulary does become a very important part of language learning once you've got past the grammar. The grammar tends to sort of level off, really. You've covered most things by B2. You're pretty much done with the grammar. I mean, usually in most languages, and you're just sort of learning some very fine points at that point, and then a lot of it is to do with expanding your vocabulary. It takes a long time. I don't know about percentages. Possibly, yeah, possibly 90%. A lot of it is that when you get over it. I mean, it depends on what level you want to speak at, right? So I mean, if a B2 is perfectly acceptable to do many things, including working and studying. So I mean, a B2 level is pretty good. So if that's all you need, then you're not going to be learning that much more vocabulary after that stage, unless you particularly want to. But the learning of vocabulary goes on and on forever, even in our own languages, right? So bilingual kids, I have the impression that even having grown up bilingual, those people never seem to take the same what? Sorry. Even destruction. Okay, in both languages. Oh, the same. Okay, education in both languages. No, I mean, and I don't know if we really have to. This is a thing, right? Is when people think about bilingualism, we often think that people are going to be exactly the same in both languages, and it's not always true. So some people might. I'm not going to say that they're not, but some people might. Look, I mean, I didn't speak certain languages until a lot later in life. My home language of Macedonian, I didn't speak until I was 27. But I don't feel disadvantaged of, not having been through an education system and in that language. I can definitely communicate and hold my own in a very strong and sort of important conversation, and I can definitely represent myself perfectly adequately in that language without any issue at all. And I can even write adequately in the language as well. So I don't feel disadvantaged. Are there differences? Of course. But does it matter? I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that, like, does it really matter? Are we ever going to speak? There are certain speakers of just monolinguals who will struggle in certain areas, and so do we need to worry? I don't know. I don't think we do. I honestly don't. I think we learn to read and write in a language, and we learn other languages to go alongside them. And some of them we take to very high levels, and some of them remain conversational. Some people have a home language or a family language or a mother tongue that they refer to, and actually they're not able to do the same as they can in the language that they used at school. So does it matter? Not really. They may never ever need to use that language in any other way apart from in a home or community environment. So they may never need it in a different way. So yeah, I would say it doesn't matter. For me personally, some other people may disagree, and that's okay too. It's just my own subjective opinion. If you were learning languages nowadays, what do you think you would be doing today? If I weren't learning languages, what would I be doing? Very good question. So the other thing that I really liked at school was chemistry. So I possibly would have gone that way. So I had a point at school actually where it was discouraged when I was at school to study science and language, and I decided to study language because it was discouraged for me to do science. But actually, I would have gone for chemistry. I really liked chemistry at school, and I was very, very close. In fact, I wanted to study languages and chemistry at university. But yeah, things turned out differently. And in the end, I went for languages in a big way and studied. So my degree is in 4 languages. I studied a degree in combined languages, and I continue to study languages at universities in different parts of the world. So so yeah, I just went for it. I can't really imagine it now. It's quite be a very different life, but I guess no less rewarding. Because I can't imagine not having carried on with languages, even if I had studied something else. I just liked languages always. And hello from Iran. Hello, nice to see you. Salam. Let me see. Hello, could you give me any advice and tips for the IELTS exam? I've never taken the IELTS exam, but the tips I can give you would be to make sure you look at past papers, make sure you go through them, you analyze them, you see what you need. If there are any topics that come up again and again, to make sure you prepare them in advance so that you have set phrases, set types of vocabulary or topics that you can write about, just like that. That would be quite an easy win for you. Same would come for the oral exams. This is the same for really any language exam that you would take. There are certain things that they like to test, and recognizing those things that they want to test and they want to see, and understanding that you need to try and incorporate those elements in your writing and speaking so that you can demonstrate that you know them. They're looking for those things to give you points, basically. And so that would be my advice. Let me see. I used to want to speak other languages at a really advanced level, but eventually I learned that totally okay running around speaking languages like a 3-year-old. Absolutely. Being understood. Absolutely. It's a fine thing to be able to do. Why not? When you're in the street and you hear people speaking a language which isn't from your country, do you like to gossip because they think you don't speak their language? No, I don't actually. I'm actually the opposite. So I kind of, for me, language is about inclusion. So I like to communicate in them. That said, I mean, we happen to have a home language that's not well understood outside of the Balkans. So it's kind of like a secret language in many places, and so we don't change that language because why? So we speak it even if we're in the UK or wherever we are in the world. I will speak Macedonian with my wife, and that's just normal. But yeah, it's absolutely a secret language, I guess, in many places because not many people speak or understand Macedonian when you get outside the Balkans. I mean, Serbs do to a large degree. Bulgarians definitely understand a lot. Although even Serbs and Bulgarians don't do it to talk about people. It's just communication. If I've got something to say to somebody, I'll just tell them in a language they understand. I'd rather. Maybe it's just I lived in the Netherlands and Germany too long. I'm quite straightforward when it comes to things like I'm very un-British in that way. British people tend to like they think people are talking about them if they speak another language. It's a very common misconception in the UK. I think in the US, unfortunately, that mentality got carried over to the US too. So there's this kind of almost paranoia. Speak English, this sort of, yeah, and because they think that people are speaking about them. But honestly, I mean, if I've got something to say to somebody, I'm very Dutch and German about this. I'll just tell you. I'm not gonna do it in another language. What's the point? I mean, like seriously, if I want to talk about you, I'll do it in the privacy of my own home later on in the day. I'm not going to be doing it in front of you in another language to make you feel uncomfortable. That'd be absolutely ridiculous. Okay. But I like that question though. It's a question I've seen in different formats before, and yeah, it's an interesting one because I've definitely seen. I've heard people doing it. I've heard people do that sometimes, but not that often. More often than not, it's been English speakers being paranoid, thinking that people are talking about them and they're not. I remember on a bus once. I was on a bus, and I was with. I can't remember who I was with, but I was with somebody, and I think there was a person behind me who was commenting about these people speaking in Spanish on the bus in the UK, saying, "Oh, listen to them. I bet they're speaking about us." And I understood what they were saying because they were speaking Spanish. And I just turned around to these British people and said, "Actually, no, they're just talking about what time they're going to go to the cinema because they were wondering which film was on." And they were talking about that. And I was like, they're not talking about anyone on the bus. They're talking about their own thing. And these people went, how do you know? And I said, because I speak Spanish. I know what they're saying. And they're not talking about you. Probably got more interesting things to talk about than you. But yeah, it's when people feel important, I guess everyone's talking about them. I don't know. Hola desde Chile. ¿Crees que somos los que hablamos español más confuso? Es que tenía también una profesora en la ciudad de Chile, así que hablaba también una chilena, hablaba así. Sí, pero a mí me gusta mucho, a mí me gusta. Yo creo que los argentinos sí que hablan, para mí los argentinos, ¿no? Tienen un acento para mí, mm, no más difícil, pero sí. A mí lo que me fascina con los argentinos es lo de hablamos castellano, pero para mí castellano es un dialecto de España. Así que es un poco, suena un poco raro decir que hablo castellano, porque para mí el español es el español que se habla, ah, pero el castellano para mí es de Castilla-La Mancha. Y pues es otro dialecto, ah, como el andaluz, como lo que sea. Así que eso sí que me gusta mucho, pero me fascina. Am, Let me see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I see your point, and it makes total sense. I stressed about kind of converting my German accent, but I too far and too old. Yeah, I wouldn't bother. Seriously, like I like a nice accent in a language. Have you ever heard of what's this listening reading Audrey method? No, I don't know if I do know that method, or at least not described in that way as a name. But do tell me. Any vocab tips? Yeah, vocab tips. Learn things. First of all, my most important vocab tips are learn things that you actually need and prioritize those. So don't focus on words that you're never going to say or you don't need. I know that sounds silly, but so many people do that, and they go down rabbit holes of like writing down lots of vocabulary. Oh, I might need that. Oh, that might be good. No, focus on the ones you actually need. Even write them down in your own language first, like, you know, food that you actually eat or like or are allergic to, for example. Focus on those first. Then write them down, find them out, learn them in context, and use them as often as you possibly can, because they're the ones that you're going to repeat a lot. Learning vocabulary is about a lot of repetition, so you want to use the ones that you're going to actually repeat. Then the next thing to do is to start learning them. Where you find and you know that you're finding it hard to learn certain words, make stories up about the words so that it sticks. We remember stories better than anything else. So make stories up about the words. Try and find hooks to put them on in your head so they're similar to other languages that you already know. That always helps. That I was reading from the chat on Instagram. I was on YouTube, then I went to Instagram. Now I'm back on YouTube. So I'm going to go back to YouTube now and pick up from where I left off. So if I missed any of your questions, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back. I'm trying to go backwards and forwards to be fair. Okay, so let me see. Okay, I agree, Richard. I won't necessarily teach my children to speak like that, but they go in that direction. But I guess it wouldn't be out of control. Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, for the kids. Thanks, Adlana. Yeah, it is. It's interesting the mix that people have, and also particularly with English. English sounds cool to a lot of people, and in fact, I was just out now, and there was a family sitting next to me and my daughter, and they were speaking Albanian, and they had a little boy, and the little boy and the parents were saying things about us speaking English. We happened to be speaking English at the time, and they mentioned that, and the dad was encouraging him to say something in English and then to sort of give us a high five, which I thought was super sweet. So we gave him a high five and we said a few words to him in English and encouraged him. But it's really interesting. Yeah, English tends to be very like a cool language because it's on TV, it's in songs, it's just all over the place. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to have a good command of the other language as well, you know, the home language or the home languages or the other languages you speak. English just happens. I mean, people tend to learn English. It's not going anywhere. It's kind of everywhere. And so, yeah, I mean, I think especially for younger kids as well, to make sure they do know, it's great. Definitely give them praise and like encourage them to say the English words. I think we can do both, though. I think we can like have them both. Oh, that's really cool that you know that word in English. What is it in our language? And see if they know, because then they'll kind of have that, hopefully have that positive feeling about their own language too, not just English. Hi, Richard, I'm from Norway, and I was wondering, do you have any advice on what career possibilities language skills can lead to? I will finish upper secondary school soon. Jonas, yes. So, I mean, there are many things you can do with languages. So obviously, there are things like teaching and translating, which I think are the first things we think about. But also, languages tend to be looked for in many different areas. So to be combined with other skills. So when I finished university, many people in accountancy firms, marketing positions, management trainee positions, in computer related areas like I was trained, for example, to be a network engineer because I spoke languages. So I was put on a training scheme in one of my first jobs to be a network engineer, and so you can combine with a lot of things. And then I went on and I worked in diplomacy for a while, and so yeah, you could like enter the foreign service, you could work for an NGO, an international organization, a non-governmental organization, or for a governmental organization that's international. And it could be that you use your linguistic skills together with other skills that you have. So it can combine well with pretty much anything. So yeah, it depends what you want to do. But just teaching and translation, that's also an option, but they're not the only options. There are lots of options, but they were the ones that I was offered when I was younger. There were an awful lot of people that wanted to train me up in, like, whether it was marketing or accountancy or computer related stuff. There were so many options like that. Also things like customer services, things where you can use your languages to help people. Really cool as well. I want to ask how many people are feeling about learning Russian right now. I'm learning Ukrainian. I already know Russian. I have no qualms about studying Russian. Interesting question. Yeah, Irene. A lot of people have asked that on Twitter as well. I don't know. Some people have felt that they don't want to learn Russian. Some people say that it's made them feel they want to learn Russian more. Because they want to understand what people are talking about and saying, and how the news is being represented in Russia. And I think that how we feel personally is a subjective thing, and we can feel different things as different people, and we can be affected in different ways as different people, and that's fine. For me personally, what a government does not necessarily affect my feelings about the language. The language is a different thing. Each country has a very diverse population with diverse thoughts, diverse ideas, diverse opinions, diverse personality types. And so I wouldn't take one country's action to colour the whole thing, for me personally. But I mean, I get that everyone feels differently about these kinds of things. So yeah, let's see. Hi there, Russian learner here. Personally separate politics. Yeah, it's nice to see you saying that, Svetlana, that you separate that. You're also learning Ukrainian on Duolingo. I love it. Duolingo apparently reported quite an increase in Ukrainian learners lately, and I like that there's a kind of a moral support there to do that for the people. From my own interest and enjoyment. Okay, fans of Eastern European languages. Yeah, Eastern European languages are cool. Hello, hi Richard. Do you use a tablet or for PDFs and note taking? Because I can only imagine how tolerable. Yeah, exactly. No, I am definitely a tablet person. So here we go. Tablet. I'm definitely a tablet person, and I also have my phone, and my PDFs go on here. In fact, I actively put books that I don't have as PDFs, and I scan them and put them as PDFs and then put them on my tablet so that I don't have lots of books to carry around. So yes, I am definitely in the 21st century with this. I really like that we've got this ability to have things that we can carry so much stuff around with us. And I grew up in a generation where I had to take a huge bag full of books with me when I went to live in France to study. And I just had this, and most of them were dictionaries. Can you imagine? Like, I had these enormous dictionaries, right? And I was studying, imagine I was studying like 4 languages. So I had just dictionaries. I had 4 huge dictionaries and then also for all of them. Actually, no, for Italian, I didn't have a monolingual dictionary, but for Spanish, for French, and for Spanish and French, I had monolingual dictionaries and bilingual dictionaries. And then for English, I had my monolingual dictionary as well. And then I also had Portuguese and Italian dictionaries. So before I even started with other books, I just had a huge amount of weight to carry with me. This is kind of in the 90s, so this is a long time ago. And I took all those things to France, can you imagine? And then I also had my other books as well. So it was I just had one big backpack that I put on my back, and it was so heavy. It was like 40 or 50 kilos easily just on my back with books. So I really love that I now have an iPad, and I don't ever have to do that again. Alexander Arguelles would kill me for saying all of this, but yeah. He loves his books. I love books too, but I also love leaving them at home and traveling light. I'm a light traveler. I don't take lots of things with me. I'm not a big things person. I'm more of a I don't like having things. I like I'm not I'm yeah, I don't buy things so much. It's just not who I am. I also study Ukrainian Polish on Duolingo. I find that you can type of Ukrainian vocabulary. Yeah, it's really cool to see this, learning lots of different languages. I love it. What's my next language after Swahili? Is there ever a stop to this? I mean, I never know. And look, I would love to go back to Persian again at some point. I'd love to. I'd love to also go back seriously to Maltese. I've got this thing about Maltese. I also want to learn Manx at some point, but at the moment with Irish and Scottish Gaelic, it would be a bit confusing to learn Manx. I'd love to learn Breton now that I've been learning Cornish. I'd love to learn Greenlandic. I'd love to learn. I'd love to go back to my Thai. I learned some Thai as a child, and I've never really studied it properly, so I'd love to go back to that. I'd love to go back to and improve some other Asian languages like Korean, which I'm still studying, by the way, and Japanese and Chinese, and I'm also Indonesian. I love Indonesian. So there are languages I want to improve. There are languages I want to reclaim again. So like Finnish, I'd love to get my Finnish back. I'd love to improve my Latvian. I'd love to learn Lithuanian. I'd love to learn some more African languages. I've got to be honest that when I went to Southern Africa, the appeal of learning Tswana was quite strong. Also, I mean, I guess Xhosa would be a big one for me. I heard quite a lot of it in Cape Town, and so yeah, I'd love that. Trying to think, there are so many of them. I also want to learn Mayan and Nahuatl, and oh my word, there's just Quechua. There's so many of them that I want to learn. It just never ends. I've just got this ridiculous list. And you know what? I'll probably end up learning something that's completely not on the list that I've just mentioned now. It'll be something completely different. You can almost guarantee it. Like, I never imagined that I would be learning Swahili, for example. It was never on my list. But here I am, studying Swahili. Did I enjoy organic chemistry as considered the hardest class at chemistry at university? I didn't study it to a high enough degree to, and it's such a long time ago to really get into it in the depth of university, because in the UK system you have to start honing down on what you're going to study at the age of 16. So we do what are called GCSEs until we're 16, and you do those in 9 subjects, usually, roughly, between 8 and 10. I did, how many did I do? I've got 11, I think, 11 GCSEs. But anyway, I did my GCSEs, and then I did my A-levels. And your A-levels are normally in about 3 or 4 subjects. Some people do a few more, some people do a few less, but I did 4. And you're encouraged at that point when you do your A-levels to choose which direction you're going into. So for when you go to university, it looks like you stuck to one path. And that's where I was kind of, unfortunately, yeah, put into this language stream. Not unfortunately in that I regret the language stream, but unfortunately I thought it was very early to be streamed into just going down one path. So instead of chemistry, I took English with my languages, and I did, and our A-level system in the UK is quite in depth when it comes to languages. They're notoriously difficult A-levels to do. So a lot of people are put off by doing languages because we go from like speaking at kind of an A2 level, GCSE, to getting up to a B2 level. I mean, we read serious literature at A level in the UK. So I was learning, for French, we read Germinal by Émile Zola, which is like a book like this in French. And we did literature in Spanish and in French. So we did some easier books as well. We did Bonjour Tristesse by Sagan. We did some Marcel Pagnol. We did Jean de Florette, Manon des Sources. In Spanish, we did Las bicicletas son para el verano and La crónica de una muerte anunciada. We did those. And this was at school, right? Whereas I don't know if this is common in many other countries, but we used some serious literature at school. And so, yeah, there wasn't much room to do other things like chemistry. So I did English language with that. And so it was actually quite a good subject to do English language, because I covered language change. So I had to study and translate from Middle English and Old English into Modern English. So I learned about the different forms of English. And then I also did language acquisition. So first language acquisition and second language acquisition I did as well for at A level for English. And I found that was actually quite a good background to have with the other languages, and for understanding a lot of other stuff now. It was quite a good background to have. So I don't regret it. I just wish that we could, maybe it would have been possible to carry on with science as well. I like science, and I really like science. I also enjoyed history, but I like science too. Now I just enjoy hearing about science and hearing about other people talk about science. Yeah. What are your favorite 10 languages alphabetically? Alphabetically, I don't know, David. Alphabetically would be very difficult for me to say. I have no idea. My favorite 10, I've got so many. It'd be very difficult to say favorite 10. But I mean, I really like German, because I learned it in Germany with a family and had a very strong bond with that family. So I really like German. It means a lot to me. I really like the sound of Icelandic. I've got this thing about Iceland. I love Iceland. I also really like Estonian. I like the way Estonian sounds. I think it's a very nice language as well. And yeah, of course, Macedonian, because it's my home language. I have a special connection with that language too. And obviously Welsh, because that's my heritage language. And I actually really like English. Unpopular opinion, but I actually do. I like English. I think English is a fascinating language. There's lots to discover. It's a very rich language. So, and it's totally not alphabetically. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't do this alphabetically. It's a bit difficult. I was thinking off the top of my head. Next time I'll prepare. Let me see. The first time here to see you live. I enjoy the videos, especially the old accent video. I admire you, man. My favorite studies are young child. Has definitely been history and geography. Fantastic, Fernie. Yeah, I see your comments now, Fernie. That's why you're probably confused why I wasn't answering your questions. I wasn't ignoring you. It's just it takes me a bit of time to go through all of the comments, just because language it helps. So what is your opinion on Basque Euskera? Thanks if you can't answer. It's okay. Yeah, so I actually started studying some Basque many years ago, and didn't get very far with it. I would love to learn it at some point. A friend of mine actually taught Basque in Basque Country. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. And he wrote some of the really important things for learners of Basque for the language. His name's Alan King. He wrote the Colloquial Basque book, and he's worked on a number of other languages as well. But he inspired me to learn some Basque, and but I didn't get very far with it. And maybe one day I'll get back to it. Hopefully, it's an interesting language. I mean, yeah, there's a whole use of the ergative, for example. It's wow. Kind of reminded me of Georgian. I studied Georgian a while back, and wow, what a grammar. That's all I'll say. Okay. With the Open University, you could do an open degree in language and chemistry. You could choose your classes, and you would be on your own unique degree. You may still want to do that if. And I thought, no, of course, Svetlana, I could definitely go back and do something later. I may do. I don't know. I mean, there are so many languages I want to study. Actually, if I went to do a degree now, I think I would do another language degree. I would like that. I did consider going into academia at one point, and didn't. Yeah, I had a place on a research position actually many years ago, and I didn't. I stopped and then got a job. I found it a bit too hard to just focus on. If I'm honest, I wanted to focus on more than just a couple of languages. I wanted to do the diverse range, and that was just my personal preference. But yeah, I started on a path in Hispanic studies. I started working on that, but yeah, I didn't carry on. It was like, I mean, who knows? One day. At the moment, I don't think it's where I am. I'm very much for the multilingual thing. I like the multilingual lifestyle too much, maybe. Let's see. Are you familiar with the works of Carl Watkins? He taught Indo-European and classics, etc. No, but he sounds really interesting. I'll have to see if I can find him. And wrote the Indo-European dictionary. Oh, wow. David, he sounds really cool. Yeah, I'll have to look him up. Feelings on earth you say about at home for a stranger to understand them. Okay. Whereas reading from, okay. I hope that's become clear now where I've been reading from. I remember when you interviewed Tim Donut and asked him if he likes science, and he said he only likes studying languages. Did I say that? I can't even remember. Wow, you've got a better memory than me. Yeah, Tim's lovely as well. Tim's really nice. Thank you for reminding me of that conversation, though. Make stories up about words so that the words stick. Yeah, absolutely. It's a really cool way of remembering words. It's called French is pretty. Yeah, considering the inconsistencies of grammar, difficult English is amazing how people seem to pick it up so easily. Yeah, people are really, really good at English. I always find it. I'm amazed with English because so many people learn it so well. Maybe it's just because of maybe it's because it's used in so many places. That's why. But yeah, the writing and speaking for English, like spelling, is a nightmare. So I always feel sorry for people who are learning it, because it took us ages to learn to. Well, it took me ages anyway. Maybe you're a lot smarter than I am, but it took me ages to learn to read and write English. I remember at school it was a real challenge. We had to repeat words for many, many years. It took so long. Because Russia continues. Okay. Oh, dearie me, I'm not getting to get to all of these. Is there a heritage language for Scottish people? What's the heritage language for Scottish people? Depends, JR. Good question. So in Scotland, there are 3 languages. Well, depending on where you are in Scotland, okay? So generally speaking, there's Scots or Doric, which is a sister language of English, which you can learn, and that is also a language for people. I don't know if heritage language is necessarily the right word for that, because it's still very widely spoken, as in, like, people haven't lost that. It's continued. It's just that sometimes people don't give it the respect that it deserves, and that's the issue more with Scots. The other language is Gaelic, and that is a Celtic language related to Irish and Manx, and that is spoken nowadays sort of right out in sort of the islands and the Hebrides and places like that. So Yeah, they're the two main languages, but there are other languages that people have spoken. So there's kind of the Shetlandic dialect is different. There used to be a language called Norn that is hopefully going to be going through a revival process at the moment. So yeah, there are quite a few. It's not just one or two. There are more, but the main ones that people think about are Scots and Gaelic. As someone from Canada with little support for Indigenous languages, I want to give Peru its due, as it's the only country in the Americas to officially recognize three. Mitch, not true. I think that is it Paraguay has a co-official status of the indigenous language as well. So there are a few of them. There's not just one. There are Peru is good for doing that, but it's Paraguay as well does it as well for their indigenous language. So yeah, it's but other communities are not so good at this. So I think you're right to highlight that one. But there's one, there is Paraguay as well that does this for Guarani. Let me see. There may be others as well. I'm not sure, but they're the ones I know. Irish is the language I wanted to learn longest, and I keep running into the problem. I'm not going to get through all of these. I'm so sorry. The UK has so many languages. It does. The UK has a lot of languages. People aren't even aware of them, even in the UK. It's quite a strange situation, actually. But yeah, we do have a lot of languages in the UK. Okay, I think I did get to most of the questions. So if I missed you, I'm sorry. I will try and get to you next time. Remember to write your questions on the Patreon page, because I will ask you to comment on your ideas and stuff on my Patreon page first, and they are the first ones I'm going to start taking to answer straight away. So please do check out Patreon, get involved. Right, there's a public option. You don't need to necessarily pay for anything. I'm not asking you to necessarily pay for anything, but just to comment and put your questions on it is good, because it means I can start prioritizing those questions, keeps them all in one place, and it's easy for me to find as well. Then also follow the links for International Day of Multilingualism, which are going to be on the YouTube video in the description. I'll also put them in the description on Instagram, but you will also find them on the YouTube page, and more clickable. And yes, and I will look forward to speaking to you again next week. Ideas for next week are welcome, and please do write them on Patreon, so that I will choose the ideas from Patreon first, simply because I get them from so many different places, and I'm going to have to start prioritizing. And also, I want us all to start talking to each other in one place. And Patreon offers that option of I can answer your questions and stuff, right? I can interact with you more easily in one place. I miss things too much on all of the other places. So just to make my life more ordered, I'm going to advise you to click on that, so that we can communicate. And as I say, you don't need to pay anything necessarily. If you want to, you're welcome, but you don't have to. And you're welcome to ask questions, and I will answer them as best I can and interact with you as best I can. Remember to like, subscribe, share, all that other jazzy stuff, to keep the love of language alive and to reach more people. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. Happy language learning, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you for keeping me company on my Sunday afternoon. I've really enjoyed speaking to you once again, and for all of your questions and comments. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.